Welcome to the fourth special session of the 59th Legislature. Productive day today. Now, I told the governor on Sunday that this was premature to call us in on a special. We should do the vetting and then get called in. He didn't take my counsel, and so we're here today. Tried to minimize how many people had to come in today, make sure we had 25. I think we ended up with 26, but just to get a quorum because we knew we were going to have to go through this process. I think the governor on Sunday was of the impression that we'd just come in and rubber stamp whoever he appointed. I didn't know who the appointment was on Sunday night. I found out with the rest of the general public when he made his executive order who the appointment was. Since then, we've been approached by some people who have deep ties to OSU, suggesting that he may not be qualified on a couple of counts. So we've got to investigate that like anything that we look at to vet. There's some pretty specific statutory language dealing with the OSU board, or as it's referred to legally as the Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical Colleges, about employment, income derived there, and then there's also a requirement for a majority of the board members to derive their majority of their income from agriculture, and we're still in the investigative stage there to make sure Mr. Holder fits those two requirements, and we're going to take our time to be diligent, not belabor it, but make sure it goes through the same process. It will probably take a little longer than normal in that we require executive noms to meet individually with members of the Education Committee prior to Education Committee getting scheduled, and that's going to be just a little bit more arduous given that people are spread out throughout the state. But we'll do our best to accommodate those meetings and go through the process, assuming that we find out that he is not legally prohibited from serving in the office.
What does that timeline look like?
Well, we're in the process of downstairs. Our legal team is looking at the appointment. We got the paperwork Monday afternoon, and so we had to verify a resume that we got is just like, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's literally just like 4 bullet points. And so we're trying to figure out some more information. Obviously, Mr. Holder is a very well-known individual from his time as athletic director and golf coach. However, we don't know about those financial interests. We don't know about agricultural activity. We've been told that he may have recently purchased some kind of ag activity down in Texas, but we don't know if that fits the requirement or not, just looking through it. Ag groups have expressed concern to us. Alumni have expressed concern. And we're just looking at it with due diligence.
In terms of in terms of just the actual meetings and confirmation vote, though, what does that timeline look like?
That's up in the air right now. I'm not aware of an emergency at the OSU board that would require us to act swiftly. Mr. Davis, who is currently serving in that role, his term has expired, but through a couple of AG opinions, one in the early 80s, one in the late 90s, and then statutory and constitutional language, it's clear that he is legally allowed to serve until somebody is confirmed by the Senate. So I'm not aware of why we're in this sense of urgency. I've got my suspicions that it may have to do with bills still being on the governor's desk until Friday, and then some angst on the board about leadership at OSU, but those are all conjecture on my part.
What senator will be carrying Mr. Holder's nomination?
He lives in Senator Hall's district, and so customarily we would allow the local member to say yes or no first, and then go to the Education Committee, and that's the process we'll follow this time.
Is Senator Hall waiting to decide whether or not to carry it until you guys get your due diligence done?
Well, Senator Hall, through another publication, indicated that his willingness to carry Mr. Holder's nomination. I think he also wants to make sure that we do the proper vetting on the legal side, but he has no personal objection to Mr. Holder that I'm aware of, but he also may not have been fully aware of the two very specific statutory requirements on this board.
Primary day is next week. Is this causing any issues for membership?
Yeah, it's, I tried to make sure that people who had elections didn't feel obligated to come down here because they've got, it's a full-on sprint now in those races. That may have been part of the timing and the reason the governor did it too. I'm not sure. He didn't express the reasoning to me when we talked Sunday night.
You were talking about some bills that are still awaiting the governor's signature. Can you talk to us about what you're waiting on?
Well, mainly the budget. The governor said very publicly that he would support the budget if we had those 4 criteria he required in those. We met those, so I'm fully expecting him to sign those. If he doesn't sign by Friday at midnight, they become pocket vetoed, and that would, in my mind, be going back on his word that he made very publicly. There's other policy bills out there that are awaiting signature. Many of those bills that are on the desk awaiting action, though, are tied up in the budget negotiations, if not most. There's about 80 bills.
Do you expect the governor to line items in the budget bill?
If he does, I think it'd be going back on his word. If we talked about those in those budget negotiations, because he did not have any criteria or any out clause in what he said. He said he would support the budget. I think at the time he may not have been thinking having to proactively sign all the bills, because traditionally he's been able to allow these to go into law absent his signature, but I can't get into Governor Stitt's mind. I don't know what he was thinking. But I know to hold his word, he must proactively sign these bills or he will have violated his pledge.
He offered a caveat May 31st, where he said anything that wasn't on the table that day, such as the limitations on the State Department of Education using PR firms, in his mind were not covered by his pledge. Do you agree with that idea?
I think the budget was covered by his pledge. If he wants to get technical on it, he'll have to justify that as he goes forward. I'm sure he wants to have some caveats. I was kind of surprised that he so carte blanche said that he would support it. I would have had more explicit caveats from the start. But he didn't do that, and I believe anything he does now is just trying to justify something in his own mind. I did not hear that May 31st. Deal, but he'll have to live with whatever consequences he creates if he does that.
Well, if the budget got killed by a pocket veto, what would happen?
We would have to call ourselves into special and/or have him call us into special because by July 1 the new fiscal year starts, and so we would have to act with post haste. That's not out of the realm of possibility with this governor. And so I've been prepared mentally. I'm not sure if the chamber's prepared. When I say the chamber, I mean the Senate body is as prepared as I am. But I have always used the word, this was my last regular session. I fully expected to be in special session just because I've been out here 14 years and this is now my 27th session. This governor's called 8, is that right? 8 special sessions in his 6 years here. Does 8 count this one?
I believe so.
Okay, so 8. This session, the 4th session, would be his 8th that he's called since he's been governor. If he doesn't sign, I hope he'll keep his word. So we'll cross that bridge if we get to it.
Is there any impact to the work of the Board of Regents not having this confirmation happen, do you believe?
No, because Rick Davis, the current regent, can continue to serve and exercise all powers within a regent until the Senate reconvenes next year, or until we confirm Mr. Holder or some successor nominee the governor may have if Mr. Holder doesn't go forward.
And it is your understanding that the new guy wouldn't replace him as an interim appointment. It needs to be confirmed.
Yes, because there's a couple AG opinions on point, one in 81 and one in 98, that are pretty on point on the OSU Board of Regents about if the vacancy occurs during the term of office for which the person was appointed, then you can have an interim appointment. Mr. Davis's appointment has obviously expired, so a vacancy that would occur anytime in the future, I believe, would run afoul of during the term for which they were appointed. So I think we'll have to take action if they want a full-time, not an interim, and it seems like he's pretty intent on getting Mr. Davis off the board because he's, he appointed Ms. Bergen, who didn't pass on the floor, didn't get confirmed. Now he's got holders, so he knows, I know, I assume he knows, that Mr. Davis could serve completely legally and exercise full power all the way through next session if we don't confirm somebody.
Have your senators who are fighting in primary elections, have they given you any indication of whether or not the governor has waded into those races and what's going on?
I've kind of been just touching base with them every once in a while. I'm not intimately involved in most of their races, but I've seen where the governor weighed in against Blake Stevens. I saw where he weighed in for Cody, for Casey, for Shane. The PAC that he's involved in, that 46 Forward, has put roughly, I think, 10 grand into the races that he cares about. And then as far as being opposed to anyone, the only one that I'm keenly aware of is he's been opposed to Blake Stevens. He came out and supported his opponent. All right, thank you.